Okay, Chairman, we're now live and we can start the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the virtual meeting of the North Application Planning Committee of the London Borough of Hillingdon. This is a virtual meeting also being broadcast simultaneously on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Henry Higgins and I'm the chairman of this meeting. Online housekeeping. Before we start, please ensure any mobile phones around you are on silent or off. If wearing a headset, ensure your microphone is away from your mouth to avoid noise. Please keep microphones muted when not speaking and then unmute to speak. Only one person may speak at a time, and as the chairman I will call those to speak. Please use your hand buttons on your screen to indicate that you wish to speak so I can see you. We'll go for attendance please first. Councillor Morgan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Dott.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm here. Thank you.
Councillor Hagger.
Good evening, Chairman. Good evening. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Melvin.
Yes, good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
Councillor Oswald.
Yeah, good evening, Chairman, and good evening all. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Yarrow.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
I do an officer roll call now. Planning Officer James Wells.
Present, Chairman.
Head of Planning James Rogers.
I'm present, Chairman.
Planning Enforcement Appeals Desmond couldn't make it today. Transport Policy and Planning Alan Tilley.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
Yeah, and Democratic Service Officer Liz Penny.
Yes, present, Chairman.
And the Legal Advisor Glenn Egan.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
In terms of technical meeting control, if any councillor leaves the meeting partway through a period of time, e.g. lost connection, I will continue the meeting unless we're not quorate, which is I need to have 3 councillors present. Important, any councillor who does leave the meeting for a period of time will not be able to vote on that item, and then we will we'll carry on. We'll go to the agenda straight away. Apologies for absent, Liz.
No apologies this evening, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest from everybody? No. Okay, lovely. Do we agree the meetings of the last meeting? A minute, sorry. I'll take that as a yes. Matters notified in advance or urgent, there are none. To confirm public and private reports. We'll go straight to the public reports. They will be live streamed. Any part 2 later will not be. We have, I believe, 4 items on petition. Is that correct, Liz?
Yes, Chairman, that's correct.
Okay, fine. So we will start off with item 6. And James, you'd like to take us away?
Thank you, Chairman. So this is item 6, 15 Newnham Avenue. This slide shows the location of the site. The proposed development includes a single-storey side rear extension, a canopy structure above the existing side entrance door, and external alterations to the property following the demolition of an existing outbuilding. These slides show, this shows a block plan of the existing situation on site showing the outbuilding and then the proposed situation with the single-storey rear extension. And then we have various plans that show existing floor plans, existing roof plan, elevations, sections, and then going on to the proposed floor plan for the single-storey rear extension, and again the extension in situ. The following photographs show the site from above, and then this is the property in question, the rear of the property in question where the extension would be located, and again the property. I'll click back to the slide which I think shows the most helpful information. I think it's this one probably for the time being. If I could start with consultation responses. Following consultation, a petition objecting with 20 signatures was received. The lead petitioner resides at number 52, the attached property. The objection raised is as set out in the report. The objection relates to the utility room and kitchen next to the adjoining party wall, and issues of noise, flooding, social disturbance and dampness occurring to their property. Also concerns about fire, ventilation and blockage of raw sewage. If I could draw members' attention to the addendum sheet, which refers to 2 additional representations received from the lead petitioner. And after this presentation, Liz Penny will helpfully read out representations from a petitioner and the agent. With regards to the application, issues relating to party wall matters, which in a way are raised by the petition, are not a planning consideration, but they're covered by the Party Wall Act. Other concerns raised are covered by separate legislation. With regards to the proposal, due to the modest size and scale of the proposed extension, it has effectively a maximum rearward projection of 3.6 metres, which is in accordance with the council's local plan guidance, and it extends beyond the western side of the host dwelling, as can be seen by the plan towards the right side of the slide. The proposed extension will not adversely impact on the amenities of adjoining neighbours. As set out in the report, the site is in flood zone 1, as is everywhere that's not in zones 2 and 3, where the risk of flooding from rivers is low. The site is in a critical drainage area where there is an additional small risk of flooding from surface water due to impermeable surfaces. However, given the limited footprint of the proposal, it's unlikely that it would significantly exacerbate flood risk. For the reasons set out in the report, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Liz, would you want to run through the petitions and the applicant and the objectors?
Yes, Chairman. So to start with, we have a petitioner statement. The directions which I have proposed are to move the WC and utility room and the kitchen to the rear garden and to leave the rear dining room in its original place. The planning officer hasn't taken this into consideration. The redesign of the internal downstairs planning application does affect me, and it is a planning matter. The planning officer and the council can't wash their hands of it and say it is a Party Wall Act matter. It's not rocket science. If a WC and a utility room and a kitchen are going to be put in a dining room area, obviously with this design, the WC location and the utility room, plumbing and drainage together will affect the party wall. The internal downstairs plan is a planning matter, and the planning officer needs to take my objection seriously, as the design has an impact on me with reference to noise, damp, fire and ventilation. There is also the potential blockage of the drains and risk of rodents entering in either properties. There is also the social risk issue, my social disturbance due to noise coming from the utility/WC room and the kitchen, with kitchen plumbing and drainage wastage. If this design wasn't used, then there would be no need for a party wall issue, i.e. the drains running along the party wall. This planning application is a planning issue and not a party wall issue. And please ask the planning officer to have a relook at my concerns again, which I did, which we did in Democratic Services. These comments were passed to planning. Okay, and then we had a representation from the applicant. So in response to the objection from the petitioner, which says, my objection to a utility room and kitchen built near my rear dining room next to my adjoining party wall, the issues of noise, flooding, social disturbance and dampness occurring to my property, also fire, ventilation, blockage of raw sewage. And in response, the agent says, the scheme has been proposed to be sensitive to neighbouring occupiers and follow the council's design policies closely. The scale, form and materials would work well with the existing house, and the overall design would sit comfortably in the context. The roof form and profile would be sensitive to the existing roof shape and form a coherent architectural composition. The character of the host dwelling and the wider area would be respected and preserved. The scheme has sought to tie in with the existing house and enhance the internal layout. The proposal has been reduced in depth to 3.6 metres to comply with the council policies, and the applicant has worked proactively with the case officer to address any genuine planning issues. There would be no harmful impact on the garden spaces or habitable room windows to the neighbours. The garden space retained would be well above the 60 square metres required at around 120 square metres. All of which paints a picture that this extension is not out of scale, but in fact a modest extension to accommodate a growing family. It is noticed that the objection raises many points which are not material planning considerations and covered by separate legislation. More specifically, matters relating to drains, damp, fire safety, social disturbance, sewage and party wall matters. It therefore leaves flood risk as the only material issue. The council's case officer has concluded there will be no additional flood risks from the extension and that the risk to flooding in the area is low. It would therefore meet the policy requirements. Lastly, it's important to stress that these works are to accommodate a growing family. The applicant and their partner are both doctors, moving back to the area they grew up in, and therefore have a long-term interest in the house and the area. This is not an extension for use as an HMO or to maximise development value. It's to meet the needs of a family. I sincerely hope the committee agrees with the case officer's recommendation and consider the limited material planning issues raised in the objection to be robustly and appropriately addressed. Thank you, Chairman. That's the end of we don't have any other statements on this application.
Thank you, Liz. Just before I go to committee, James, can you verify that this party wall is on what side? Is it on the side, because this is a semi-detached building, isn't it?
That's right, Chairman. The party wall, looking at the slide on the screen, yeah. The party wall would be towards the left of the ground floor plan as shown on the slide on the screen, as I say. But as I understand it, party wall legislation doesn't kick in.
No, it doesn't. It's not really a concern. The only thing I have on this plan is on the second floor. That's some sort of roofing, but how can that be if that is butted up to another property which is part of the semi-detached? Up here, James. That's it. On that one, if you go up to the bathroom area here.
Here, yes.
No, this side, on the right-hand side. So that is not the party wall, is it? The other party?
No. Exactly. It is the it's the wall between the pair of semi-detached properties.
Yeah.
So I think my understanding of the legislation is that most of these matters will be dealt with under the provisions of the building regulations, and there is an informative in the recommendation to that effect.
Okay.
Raising the issue of the building regulations, but in my experience, it should be possible to provide services without effectively involving party wall legislation. So on that basis, there shouldn't be any of the problems that are the concern of the petitioner. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Can you unshare as well, please? So I just wanted the committee to realise that the party wall is not really one of the things of our concern. So I just want to think. So we'll go straight to Councillor Oswald.
Oh, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I think the report looks all right, and I'm quite pleased that the applicants have worked with planning services to make sure that it wasn't oversized. It's within our parameters, and I think the report looks to me to be okay. And I'll move the officer's recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oswald. Who have I got next? Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, looking at the report, I'm happy with the officer's report on this. I don't see any problem. I think that the applicant has been very sympathetic to the neighbour. They've ticked all the boxes, and I'm happy to second that, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. There's very little that we can turn around and say, no, let's reject this application. I hope that the applicant in this instance can sort of like try and put in a little bit more soundproofing on the party wall, especially where the utility in the kitchen will be, to help reduce any excess noise, especially at night, that may creep across. But again, I think you've got a proposer and a seconder for this, so I'm happy to go with the officer's recommendations. I just hope that they can do something on the soundproofing.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dott. Oh, you put your hand down, Councillor Dott. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to echo with my fellow councillors. I understand the concerns raised by the petitioner. I have a sympathy with them because they're experiencing these issues about dampness or others. But however, we can't consider those concerns against this proposed development because they are covered with the separate legislations. Also, the proposed development complies with all the planning policies, so it would be wrong to reject this application. Additionally, we need to consider the effects in case of the appeal. So I fully support this officer recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dott. Okay, Liz, we've had no changes to conditions. Everything is as it is in the report. So I'll go straight to the vote.
Councillor Yarrow just indicated, actually.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Yarrow, beg your pardon.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The little hand that allows me to signal doesn't appear to have disappeared.
Well, you can use your big hand if you wish.
I shall have to use my big hand and wave it on the screen. I more or less agree with everything that my colleagues have said. However, I was concerned about the party wall situation, and I think that a lot of the worries that the neighbour has are certainly not going to come to fruition, particularly if the applicant uses the same input point for the water into the bathroom as they've got now, and the exit point for the waste. I would be concerned, although it probably just comes under party wall, if they were going to run a completely new set of drains and water input down the side of the party wall. I would have thought there was no need for that, and they should be going into the toilet that already exists, and using the supply and the output from that point, in which case there should be no problems. So I'll go along with the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Yarrow. I think you put that very well and very without lowering the tone of this committee today with the waste and the thing. That's very good. So I'll go straight to the vote. Councillor Dott.
4 for officer recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Haggart.
4, Chair.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Coffin. Councillor Melvin.
Yes, 4, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan.
4, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Proposed by Councillor Oswald. Councillor Singh.
4, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Yarrow.
4, Chairman.
I have that unanimous. Is that correct, Liz?
Yes, Chairman, that's unanimously approved.
Thank you very much. James, can we go on to item 7, please?
Thank you, Chairman. This is item 7, 169 Joel Street. This slide shows the location of the site on the east side of Joel Street, just south of its junction with Middleton Drive. The proposed development includes, it involves the demolition of the existing dwelling and the erection of a Part 1, Part 2 and Part 3 story building comprising 9 flats with 4 parking spaces. The following slides show again a site block plan These are the floor plans of the existing dwelling to be demolished. These are the elevations of the dwelling. And then we have a layout plan showing the proposed development in the centre of the screen. Once again, a block plan showing the proposed development with the parking spaces to the front of the site, effectively to the west of the site. These are the floor plans as proposed. I'd ask members to note the obscure glazing shown to the sort of left and right of the image on the screen, and some of those obscure glazed windows are the only windows to habitable rooms. Going on from there, once again, this is the proposed first floor plan, the second floor plan, and then the roof plan. And these are the elevations showing the proposed development. Following consultation, 29 representations and a petition with 54 signatures objecting to the proposal were received. After this presentation, Liz Penny once again will helpfully read out representations from a petitioner. The proposed development is considered an overdevelopment of the site, which would fail to provide, firstly, an adequate level of off-street parking with only 4 parking spaces, and would result in the provision of substandard accommodation, for example, the obscure glazed windows to habitable rooms that I've mentioned. In addition, the forward position of the proposed development, its significant width close to the site boundaries, and its design would be harmful to the character and appearance of the site. It would also result in a perceived loss of privacy to the neighbouring properties, and for the reasons set out in the report, this application is recommended for refusal. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Liz, would you like to for the committee to read out the petitions, please?
Yes, Chairman. So we've received a submission from the lead petitioner. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of myself and local neighbours on Joel Street, Middleton Drive and Wyvale Close. Many of my neighbours and I have lived here for around 30 years and brought up our families here. My argument against the construction centres around 3 main points: added congestion in the area, increased difficulty parking and a lack of privacy. Of course, over the years, Joel Street has got a lot busier. Families have had children who are now grown up, and thus many households have accumulated more vehicles, meaning many houses have 3 or more cars. Potentially 25 to 30 people could be living in the proposed flats with only 4 parking spaces. There is already a problem with Grant and Stone parking 3 of their lorries up and down the street. More importantly, buses and emergency services utilise the street regularly. The added congestion that 25 to 30 occupants living in the flats could bring would add to an already overcrowded road. As well as the aforementioned congestion, we also have gym classes at the nursery on Joel Street Farm. For some reason, the nursery will not allow use of their car park. This forces the gym class users to park on both sides of the road 3 evenings per week, making it difficult to access driveways and to safely cross the road. We have 3 schools off Joel Street, and most mornings traffic tails back halfway down the road, especially in winter. Outside peak hours, the speed at which the traffic travels up and down the road is also a cause for concern. Vehicles have already been hit when parked on Joel Street. This could become more prevalent as the proposed building will unquestionably cause an increase in cars on the road. There have also been incidents of cars being broken into when not parked on their drives. Balconies on the 2nd and 3rd floors are a clear breach of all our privacy, as they will overlook gardens on Joel Street and Middleton Drive. Some neighbours have expressed their concerns about a possible loss of light or overshadowing that the 3-storey property would cause. We feel that the quantity of people who could be living at the flats puts a strain on local amenities. There are already a large number of people living locally. More people will also almost certainly cause noise and an increase in disturbance. The size of this area at present accommodates 1 large house, and in keeping with present properties could possibly accommodate 2 semi-detached properties, but they are wishing to build 9 flats with 16 bedrooms. No one objected when the present owners of the property expanded the size of the building considerably a few years ago, as it was a private family home set back on the plot, but now they're proposing to move the building forward and significantly increase the size again. I started this petition to see how other neighbours felt about flats being built at 169 Joel Street, and every door I knocked on signed my petition without hesitation. This clearly shows that local residents share my concerns and are not happy for these flats to be built. The Residents Association are also against this proposal and have written to residents. Through my discussions with my neighbours, I have learned that we all feel affected by this. Thank you for your consideration and taking the time to listen to our concerns. So that was from the lead petitioner, and we don't have any other submissions on this one.
Not even a ward councillor, no?
No, nothing from the ward
Okay.
from the ward council. Thank you,
Right.
Chairman.
Okay, I will open. James, you want to come in before we go any further?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to speak about reason 6 parking. Members will know that I do sometimes urge caution in terms of adding a parking refusal reason. But the reasons I just wanted to quickly outline the reasons why on this case your officers do think such a reason should be imposed, which is that of the 29 individual objections, a lot of them referred to parking stress on local streets and criticised the low parking ratio. You've got 9 flats with only 4 parking spaces, so that's particularly low. It's not a marginal shortfall.
Yeah.
And also this location is a low P-tail that's some distance from tube and rail stations. So if in other cases members hear me argue against a parking reasons, I just want to make it clear that in this particular case, your officers think it's appropriate to add a reason 6. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, James. Thank you. It's that PTAL that you keep talking about. We have to learn to just let you tell us what it is. Right. Also, just in case, when do we? Obviously, this will be the first flatted development down Joel Street. At that part of Joel Street, obviously, where the high street is, where the shops are, there is flat. But when do we have
Mr. Chairman, it's not the first.
Yeah, I know that.
There's some opposite, no, almost opposite.
Yeah, I know. I just want to explain this. The 10% rule. Are we allowed to do it on part of the road, James, or is it something that we can't on Joel Street? Because it is a mixed from one end of the road to the end of it. I just want to know this. Can we issue a 10% rule for flatted development on that side or not?
Well, we'd have to refer to precisely how the policy is worded. Yeah. I don't think it refers to just one side of the road in effect.
Okay, fine.
I can sort of cross-reference it in more detail, but your officers don't think the 10% rule is breached in this particular case.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Councillor Oswald.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, just a couple of things. I mean, car parking's just been explained by James. Doesn't meet our car parking standards. I just feel that this is a little bit out of character, and I sympathise with the petitioners, and I think that they're absolutely right. I think it's not really in keeping with what's there. So I'm quite happy, Chairman, to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. I'll take that as a proposal, John. Okay, Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much for the officers. They explain everything nicely. Like we have the concern parking, no privacy, or schools around that, 3 schools around that area. So I'm quite happy with the officer recommendations. I'm the second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Singh. Councillor Dot.
Thank you very much, Chairman. My understanding is, according to me, this is clearly overdevelopment. 9 flats comprising 16 bedrooms. Also, if we think about the residents, they already facing insufficient parking problems. Also, poor visibility for pedestrian and emergency vehicle access. These concerns raised by residents. So I fully support the officer recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll go. Got no other ones. Councillors want to speak. I'll go straight to the vote. There's going to be no changes in conditions or anything, so we'll go straight to the vote. Councillor Dot.
For Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hagger?
For Chair.
Councillor Kaufman?
For Chairman.
Councillor Melvin?
For Chairman.
Councillor Morgan?
Mr. Chairman, I'm for, we've got 6 reasons for refusal, which is much more than we normally go with. So, yeah, I'm for the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Oswald proposed, Councillor Singh seconded. Councillor Yarrow?
For the officer's recommendations.
Thank you very much. That's unanimously agreed. Is that agreed, Liz?
Yes, Chairman, that's unanimously in favour of the officer's recommendation.
Okay. Thank you very much. James, James Wells, would you like to take us away for number 8, please, item?
Thank you, Chairman. Item 8 is 33 Wieland Road in Northwood, and this slide shows the location of the site. The proposed development includes a Part 3-storey rear extension, a subterranean garage and services and storage room, structural underpinning and external remodelling, including new roof construction. The following slides show the existing site, and then this is a slide showing the existing plans and elevations. This is the existing elevation, front elevation, effectively a street scene view, followed by the proposed site plan and the ground floor plan proposed, first, second and roof plan proposed, and finally the proposed elevation with once again a helpful street view. The photographs, I won't go through all the photographs, there's quite a few, but this one shows the site from above, and then probably this is one of the most helpful photographs, which shows the existing building. And then there are other photographs showing the surrounding area and parts of the existing building and its relationship with other properties. If I click back to the street scene elevation, just to help members, firstly, the addendum sheet advises that the report should refer to a petition with 61 signatures objecting to the application, and it also refers to a recently received petition with 46 signatures in support of the application, asking that permission is granted. Once again, as per the addendum sheet, there is a bracket missing in the first reason for refusal after the word Gable on the second line, which would be corrected if members agree with the recommendation. After this presentation, Liz Penny again will helpfully read out representations from councillors, a petitioner and the agent. Regarding the petition, the loss of the original character of the existing property would be regrettable, and it's considered on balance that the proposed development will harm the character and appearance of the Gatehill Farm Estate area of special local character. In addition, the second reason for refusal captures the tree and landscape officer concerns that the proposed loss of a B grade tree protected by TPO and the serious threat of damage to or loss of additional protected and B grade trees is unacceptable, and the officer supports the application being refused on that basis. Finally, the application involves a subterranean development in a critical drainage area, and the applicant has not submitted a flood risk assessment or a basement impact assessment, assessments as required by local plan policy, and the proposal therefore fails to satisfy these local plan policy requirements, and for these reasons the application is recommended for refusal. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Liz, I think you've got a few things to read out for us. Thank you.
Yes, I have, Chairman. So firstly, we have a representation from the petitioner. There will also be some photos which James Wells will show shortly as part of his presentation. So let me just start with the reading first. So petitioner says, "Good evening. Could I start by clarifying that there were 61 signatories to the petition, not 26 as stated in the officer report? The principle of extending this property is not being questioned. What is in question is whether the extensions proposed in this application are appropriate and whether the proposals justify the felling of a healthy TPO tree. The proposed 3-storey front and rear extensions, along with side extensions, a basement and a rather unusual roof structure, will transform the traditional arts and crafts-based property into a style of property which would be totally unique on this estate. Proposals include raising the height, altering the style and orientation of the roof, thus creating a full-height 3rd floor. Large full-height windows over 3 stories will completely alter the look of the original property and introduce new features into this area of special local character. A document containing many photographs of other properties was submitted to the council by the applicants to persuade you that what is being proposed is acceptable. However, we ask you to note that many of the photos are not of Gatehill properties and are therefore irrelevant. In fact, the applicants were not able to provide any photographs of estate properties with similar features to what they are proposing to build, as none exist. We also object to the felling of a healthy TPO tree, which can be seen from a great distance around the estate, simply to enable transference of the existing garaging from the left-hand side of the property to the right-hand side and enable the out-of-keeping front extensions to be built. So James is now showing the 3 photographs submitted by the petitioner. So that's the first one. Can you just show the next one, James? Thank you. And that's the second one, just showing where the tree is. And that's the 3rd photo submitted by the petitioner. James, if you wouldn't mind leaving the presentation up, because we have some more photos from the applicant. So the petitioner says, we would also ask you to look at photos of the TPO tree, which the applicants are again requesting to fell. So photo 1, sorry James, if we can just go back, shows the TPO spruce tree from Wieland Road, showing the important contribution it makes to the street scene. Okay, that's that one. And that's second one, which is taken from the bottom of Wieland Road with the TPO tree prominent in the skyline. And then finally, photo 3 is a view of the TPO tree from Shefton Rise, which is the road around the corner and set higher than the application site. You can see that the tree makes a significant contribution to the sylvan character of the estate and the ambience and amenity they provide. To suggest that this tree could be replaced with 2-metre-high silver birch trees in different locations around the site, which would require removal of additional hedges and other conifers, is simply ludicrous. Our final point relates to the proposed basement. Concerns regarding basement development are well documented. We hope that you will have noticed that the TPO tree photographs you will have noticed from the TPO's tree photographs just how steeply the land in this area slopes. From the applicant's plans, it can be confirmed that the drop in level from the corner of the rear garden to the road is around 10 metres, added to which there is a drop of 7 metres from left to right at the rear, less at the front. You should also be aware that the road at the bottom of the hill has flooded on several occasions. The applicants wish to build a soundproof storage room and a new garage on or very near the boundary with the neighbouring property at the lower level. The proposed staircase down to the basement would abut the neighbour's supporting wall and create an obvious weak low spot for the ground and surface water seepage. The applicants do not appear to have considered the effect of their proposals on neighbouring properties. It is essential that a site-specific assessment of the ground and surface water movement within the site be undertaken over a period of time, and the conclusions and recommendations of any independent expert be expressed in a legally binding format which neighbours can rely upon. Gatehill Residents Association believes that this application would have a detrimental effect on the original house, the street scene, the neighbouring property and the amenity of residents. We support the refusal reasons which officers have proposed for this application. Thank you. And that's from the petitioner. And then we have a representation from the applicant. So, Chair and members of the committee, we have read the officer's report and recommendation and wish to set out our case in support of this application. In reviewing the merits of the proposal, we would ask that regard be paid to the planning history and the previous consents for the provision of a modern dwelling. These consents are material to the application as advised by the case officer, and whilst the development plan has evolved, the principles of planning policy remain much the same and support the principle of development. In assessing this proposal, we would draw specific attention to the content of the Conservation Officer's comments, which, whilst recognising that the existing building contributes to the character of the estate, the designation as an ASLC was not for coherence of architectural design or unique architectural interest, and it is understood that Conservation does not have an outright objection with the development. In fact, they advise that whilst they have some concerns with the development from a historic environmental perspective, the quality of the contemporary design and the improvements in sustainability and efficiency of the building should not be dismissed. On the concerns with the development design, it's noted that the case officer accepts that the ASLC is characterised by an eclectic housing mix. And there are some images, which we'll come to in a minute, and that extensions are acceptable in principle. They also advise that the proposed development sits well on the plot and that they have no objection to the proposed build footprint. And as shown on the attached sketch, the increase in bulk is minimal. We'll show that again in a second. In relation to neighbouring properties, it is noted that the scheme is deemed to respect adjacent boundaries and would not have a detrimental impact on neighbouring amenity for loss of natural light, overshadowing or overbearing. There was also noted to be no harm to neighbours from overlooking or loss of privacy. In fact, the case officer states that the proposal will have a satisfactory relationship with adjacent properties. In relation to the proposed reasons for refusal, we would advise that the applicant has held extensive discussions with the local authority prior to submission of the application, and no overwhelming objections were raised on the matter of design. In relation to the loss of the TPO tree, we believe that this should not impact the principle of the development. Further, we were not advised by the case officer during the life of the application or the principal planner during pre-application of the need to amend the plans to secure the retention of the spruce tree in the front garden, which will be replaced by 3 silver birch. There is no risk to any retained trees, including protected oaks, on the rear boundary. With regard to the need for a flood risks report, we would again advise that, had the case officer brought this to our attention, a suitable assessment would have been provided. We can confirm that advice was sought from a consultant prior to submission of the application, and the applicant was advised that, as the site was a low flood risk, a formal assessment was unlikely to be required. Also, given that the application was validated without this information, we feel that the matter of drainage could be addressed by condition. As we note, has been applied to other recent consents in the local area, in brackets 17 Elgood Avenue, and therefore it would be an unjustified reason to withhold consent. The Conservation Officer identifies the need to assess the harm of the development to heritage assets. However, in our view, considering the existence of other contemporary designs in Hillingdon ASLCs, the development is on balance deemed to be acceptable, with a well-designed proposal that addresses the existing structural issues, respects the previous approvals, and secures a development which enhances the site's energy efficiency and sustainability credentials, all of which in our view weigh in favour of the grant of consent. We would therefore kindly request that members carefully consider the merits of the proposed development and once again support the principle of a high quality contemporary design at 33 Wieland Road and approve this application subject to conditions. In deliberating the scheme, we would also draw members' attention to the petition submitted in support of the application signed by 42 local residents. As an alternative, the applicant would be supportive of a deferment to allow further negotiations with the case officer. And James, if you could just show the pictures now, please, the photos. Okay, so these are the photographs that the applicant referred to, demonstrating the mix of other examples of other local areas of special local character and some of the properties in areas of special local character. And then finally there's the plan there. Oh, sorry, James. The plan there which shows the increase in the proposal in terms of size. Okay, so that's the applicant's representation, and we do have 2 short representations from ward councillors. So firstly, James, sorry, if you wouldn't mind unsharing the presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the ward councillor representation from Councillor Bianco. This item is coming to Planning North this week with an officer recommendation to refuse. I fully support this recommendation, and on behalf of the residents, who I know are also objecting, I share all their concerns. This is yet another example of serial planning applications, each one seeking slightly more than the one before. I'm also very concerned at the clear abuse of the petition system, where I see there is a petition in favour of the applicant, but being signed by people who, whilst borough residents, live far away, some as far as Hayes. Refusal of this application is the right thing to do in this case, and I hope you will all agree with me on this. That's from Councillor Bianco. And then a statement from Councillor Duncan Flynn. I would greatly appreciate it if you're able to place on record at the North Planning Committee meeting my objection to this planning application in my capacity as a ward councillor. I visited the site and spoke to the applicant prior to the submission of the application, so I'm familiar with the site. While the property is clearly in need of substantial modernisation, I have two major concerns with this application. Firstly, the design and the scale of the building proposed is firmly out of character with the surrounding Gatehill Farm estate. Secondly, the loss of TPO trees is both unnecessary and undesirable. For these two reasons, I urge members to support the officer's recommendation for refusal. That's from Councillor Finn. And that concludes all the representations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. James, can I just, before I go to councillors, the flood reports and the drainage thing, I thought when we have basements, we have an agreement that we will have these come into us first. Isn't that correct, or am I misinformed?
Sorry, Chairman. Yes, there is a requirement. Local plan policy DMHD 3 talks about the need for basement impact assessments. But unfortunately, they're not always asked for, and applications sometimes have to be validated even when they are asked for, and applicants decline to submit them.
Yes.
And this has, I know, occurred on other sites, and we have, when we have asked for this information, agents and applicants have declined to submit it. So I think it is important that we push for this information. If it's not provided, then unfortunately it can't, in my experience, be dealt with by condition. If there's a flooding problem, it's too late in the day even to deal with it, or to try and deal with it with a pre-commencement condition, and therefore that the right way forward is to require the information to be provided in advance of a formal determination.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify that for other members as well, because I think we all agree on this, you know, that if you're going to build a basement, we want to see the report. So I'll move straight on to Councillor Morgan and then Councillor Oswald.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Officers confirmed that these houses are not on the Gatehill estate. I think it is relevant on this application that we do confirm that the houses that we've been looking at don't actually exist on the Gatehill estate. Other than that, I'm very happy to go with the officer's recommendations.
Okay, so you're going to propose that, John?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Sorry, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. James, you want to pick up on that, please?
Thank you, Chairman. My understanding is that the addresses of the properties have not been provided, so I can't confirm whether or not they are on the Gatehill estate. Sorry, Liz, do you have any information about the addresses?
Just bear with me 1 second, James. I don't think we do. I think everything that was, I know the petitioner said that there were no similar properties within the Gatehill estate. In terms of the applicant's representation, it just says as this heading, other examples in local areas of special local character. It doesn't actually give specific addresses for those, I'm afraid. So it's a little unclear.
They don't look familiar to me, and I live around here, so but anyway, but that's by the by. Thank you. Next is Councillor Oswald.
Yeah, second, Chairman. No
Thank
problem.
you very much. That's nice. That's very simple. Thank you very much, John, as usual. Straight to the point. I'll go straight to the vote then, including with the amendment that is on the addendum. Sorry, we are now voting on this item. Councillor Dott.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hagger.
For, Chair.
Councillor Kaufman.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Melvin.
Yes, for Chairman.
Proposed by Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Oswald. Councillor Singh.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Yarrow.
For, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I make that unanimous. Is that correct, Liz?
That's correct, Chairman. Unanimously in favour of the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. We go to item 9, which is the last petition item. James, would you like to take us away on this one?
Thank you, Chairman. Item 9 is 40 Station Approach in South Ruislip. This slide shows the location of the site on the south side of Station Approach. These plans show the existing building, which I know quite well. Friends of mine use the dentist, if I can put it that way. And there is a dentist on ground floor with a flat on the first floor. This is the existing building, the north or front elevation. And then we have some other elevations, the rear elevation of the existing building, side elevations, and this I think is very helpful to members, councillors, to show the existing street scene. Going on from there, this is the proposed site plan showing the proposed dental surgery towards the top of the plan, or effectively the north of the site, with a flat also at ground floor level shown towards the south, or the lower part of the proposed building, with 4 parking spaces shown again towards the very south of the site. Going on from there, we have what's described as a context plan. There are other plans showing access through the building, and then a number of plans showing both the ground floor and the upper floors. I'll click through those fairly quickly. And perhaps if I before going into the rest of the presentation, I'll click through these slides fairly quickly, and then there are some photographs which will help members to understand the look of the existing building. That was a sort of an air view, some existing development nearby, and then this is the most helpful photograph, probably showing the existing building. Following consultation, one representation and a petition with 31 signatures objecting to the proposal were received. After this presentation, Liz Penny will again helpfully read out representations from an agent, or the agent, sorry, and a councillor. If I could click back just to the street scene, which I think is probably most helpful for councillors. The overall size and scale of the building, it's considered, would be detrimental to the appearance of the site. In particular, the proposed roof access enclosure and lift overrun, by reason of its size, scale, bulk and design, would add visual clutter and detract from the appearance of the building and its wider streetscape. The proposed housing mix, so that would include 6 one-bedroom flats and 1 two-bed flat, would lead to the loss of the existing family size unit. The unit mix, it's considered, fails to provide sufficient family sized units as required by the latest information on housing need in the borough. And for these reasons, as set out in the report, the application is recommended for refusal. Happy to take questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Liz, I believe you have a few things to read out for us. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman. So we have a statement, first of all, from on behalf of the applicant. This planning application is to be determined on the 11th of March 2021. A petition has been submitted in relation to it which concerns the following matters: height of the development, impact of the scheme on privacy, exacerbating parking stress, and failure to provide 3-bed units. Officers' assessment of the application found it to be acceptable in terms of the privacy and parking stress issues. The 2 proposed reasons for refusal, upon which we focus below, concern the size and scale of the building and mix of units. Background. Prior to submission of the application, we entered into pre-application discussions with officers regarding a scheme to redevelop the site. The application scheme responded to officers' comments made in relation to it. We submitted the application scheme believing it to be acceptable, but also willing to discuss concerns regarding it. Had we been advised earlier of the concerns regarding the size, scale and unit mix, we could have amended it. Unfortunately, we didn't receive a response as to why the application was recommended for refusal from officers until last Wednesday, reasons which we can address with amendments. We explain below the changes that we can make to address officers' concerns, and therefore request members to defer the application. If the application is deferred, we will amend the plans next week so that the application can be reported back to the next committee. So, unit mix. Officers advised in paragraph 1 of page 8 of their report that a higher proportion of 2-bed dwellings as well as the provision of the existing 3-bed family unit is expected. The table below sets out the current proposed unit mix and how we can change it. The proposed change addresses in full the issue raised by officers in draft RR2 as well as the petitioner's 4th issue. So in the table it says that the existing is a 1 3-bed unit. Current proposal is for 6 one-bed units and 1 2-bed units, which a total of 7, and the suggested change is 3 one-bed units, 2 2-bed units and 1 3-bed unit, which would total 6 units. To summarise, the scheme can be altered to provide 3 one-bed units, 2 2-bed units and 1 3-bed unit. Roof access enclosure / lift overrun. Our client has found an alternative system which would enable the lift overrun to be about half the size of what is currently shown and based upon a glass box. This would significantly reduce the size, scale and bulk of the enclosure and have a less intrusive design. As such, any effect that the enclosure has on the roofscape will be significantly reduced. This will also address the perception of height raised by petitioners as an issue. Size and scale. The 2 2-bed flats, which can now be proposed for the 2nd floor, will have a smaller footprint than the currently proposed 3 one-bed flats at this level. This change in unit mix will enable a setback of at least 3 metres to be provided on the 2nd floor at the rear of the building, facilitating a step down in height. This change, together with the reduction in size of the lift overrun, will materially reduce the size and scale of the building so that it better relates to the character and appearance of the area. Conclusion. It is agreed with officers that the proposed development will provide a qualitative and quantitative enhancement of the dentist surgery, a community facility, on the site. The scheme, subject to the suggested changes, will also retain a family-sized 3-bed flat and provide 5 additional 1 and 2-bed units. The scheme has an attractive design, includes sufficient car parking, and will not harm the amenity of adjoining neighbours. If the committee agrees to defer determination of the application, we will amend the scheme to address the issues of concern to officers and petitioners. So that was from the applicant. And then we have a short statement from Ward Councillor Tuckwell. Dear Chairman and members of the North Planning Committee, I am grateful for the opportunity to submit my comments in opposition to this application as Ward Councillor for South Ruislip. I fully support the officer's recommendation to refuse this application and commend the strength of the 2 reasons that clearly demonstrate how this development falls short of several national and local planning policies. I would also ask that members take account of the petition against this application that has been supported by 31 local residents in and around the proposed development. Members will note that the petition in objection is well constructed and based on sound reasons that include the height impact on the character of the surrounding area, given the proposed development is on a prominent corner plot, overlooking and privacy of neighbouring residents in Northolt Avenue, additional parking stress as a direct result of the proposed development, and a failure to provide family housing. A 3-storey building with a 4th 4-storey cladded structure would contribute to an over-dominant building on a prominent corner plot, which would result in an adverse impact on the street scene and the character and appearance of the area. It's also clear that there is a shortfall in amenity space against policy standards. In conclusion, I would ask that members take these points into account and refuse this application as recommended by officers. And that was from Councillor Tuckwell, who's the one of the ward councillors. And that concludes the representations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Liz. Very well done. I'm glad you do it rather than me. I can tell you that for nothing. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chairman. I have nothing further to add to Councillor Tuckwell's very constructive verbiage on this issue. I would also stress that, in fact, what doesn't appear on this, and it probably isn't, it will have an impact on this, and it should have had an impact on, the actual person making the application. Opposite this, exactly opposite, is 43 brand new apartment building, and just up the road by about 50 yards, there's another 109 flats going to be built that have planning permission. So do we need this sort of hotchpotch development that is more, it's totally overdevelopment? And I go along with Councillor Tuckwell's comments on this, and I would go for officer's recommendation to refuse this.
Okay, I take that as your proposal.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
And I like the word verbiage. I haven't heard that one for a long time.
Well, that's quite cool. Yeah, I was trying to...
Down with the people, I think is the word. There we go. Next one is Councillor Morgan, then Councillor Oswald. Oh, sorry, James. Before I go to you, Councillor Morgan, James, did you want to come in? James Rogers.
I just wanted to respond to one point raised by the petitioners in favour or the agent, whichever it was. I've just checked our pre-application planning advice, and we did raise concerns regarding the size and scale of the building and the unit mix.
Oh, well. Chose not to hear that, obviously. Councillor Morgan.
Just wanted to mention that for the record. Sorry, Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Look, we can only go with what we have in front of us. We can't start turning around and say, well, the applicant is going to do this, that and the other if we defer it. No, what we have in front of us is an overdevelopment on this particular corner site. And I fully support the officer's recommendation, so I will second Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Oswald, has he beat you to it?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, we have to decide on what's in front of us, and it's this report, so I'm quite happy with the officer's recommendation. I've got a feeling that with the changes that they've said that they would be prepared to make should we refuse this, well, why didn't they do that in the first place? I'm fed up with these applications that come in with all 1 bed and 2 bed units, and I've said that before on this meeting. There are not enough 3 beds. It's already been stated that that's the need and that's what we should have. And I've got a feeling that we're being slightly compromised here, and I'm really not happy about this. We should refuse this application, go with the officer's recommendation, and if they want to come back again with a reapplication, giving us something that we want, then fine, let them do that. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Oswald. Councillor Yarrow, with your big hand waving.
Thank you, Chairman. There is another issue, of course, and if they are going to come back with a modified application after this is rejected, we need to know the exact amenity space that's going to be allowed for these flats, and they have failed to actually give us that information. So that is another issue, that we have not been given the correct details as to just how much space is there. So I would go for the officer's recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Oswald. I think if the applicant is listening, I think you've given, all of you councillors have given some really good advice for them, and hopefully they'll adhere. I will go straight to the voting. Councillor Dott.
For, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hager.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman proposed. Councillor Melvin.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan seconded. Councillor Oswald.
Yeah, for, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
4, Chairman.
And not last but least is Councillor Yarrow.
4, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We will now, that is unanimously agreed with officer's recommendation. Is that agreed, Liz?
That's correct. Unanimously in favour of the officer's recommendation.
So we go for the last item in public, which is item 10. James, would you like to take us away, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Item 10 is 11 Sandy Lodge Way in Northwood. This slide shows the location of the site on the west side of the road. This is a helpful slide showing the existing site plan to the left of the screen and the proposed site plan to the right. And then we have again a helpful slide showing the elevations and floor plans of the existing dwelling, and then again a different scale of the proposed ground floor plan and site plan showing 6 car parking spaces towards effectively the east or the front of the site. And then finally we have, we have then the proposed floor plans. I'll just click through these. Sorry, members.
That's fine.
I haven't explained the proposal, but I imagine members are probably aware that the proposal is to demolish the existing dwelling house and to erect a 2-storey building with habitable accommodation in its roof space to create 3 2-bedroom flats and 1 3-bedroom flat with amenity space, parking and a new vehicular crossover to the front of the site. I've gone through these slides. Apologies for not explaining the proposal, but here we have the proposed elevations and sections, a helpful street scene effectively, or part street scene towards the top of the slide showing the existing property next door, number 9. And then we have an aerial view, and then again a helpful photograph showing number 11 towards effectively the front of the photograph, the closest part to us, with the existing property number 9 to the rear and the left of that. Again, the existing property to the rear, and then again a useful photograph showing the difference in scale between the existing property number 11 and the existing property number 9. Before going on, I'll click back to the elevations which mentioned before. Following consultation, 25 representations were received, and they are summarised in the report. The principle of introducing flatted development at this site has already been established through the granting of planning permission under an application in May 2018, which is referred to in the report. To assist members, the 2018 application included a part basement floor, which is not part of the current application, and only 1 bedroom and a dressing room in the roof space. This proposal would be set some 1.8 metres from the boundary with number 9, and overall about 3.4 metres from the nearest flank wall of number 9. It would project approximately 1 metre, excluding the gable features, beyond the rear elevation of number 9, with an additional approximately 4.5 metres rearward projection only at ground floor level. The development would not result in an unacceptable loss of residential amenity to neighbouring occupiers, nor would it have a negative impact upon the visual amenity of the site or the surrounding area. It would provide adequate internal and external space for future occupiers. The highway officer has raised no objection to the 6 off-street parking spaces provided, i.e. that they are adequate for the proposed 4 flats. In addition, the proposed crossover would not prejudice pedestrian or highway safety. As set out in the report, there are conditions covering tree protection measures, landscaping, cycle and refuse store provision, inclusive design, sustainable drainage, and the sustainability of the proposed building. So as set out on the addendum sheet, condition 18 is to be amended, so we're including reference to the need for an agreement under section 278 of the Highways Act, and as a result proposed informative 1, which refers to the same Highways Act, is to be deleted. For the reasons set out in the report, the application is recommended for approval. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. We've had this has come before committee quite a few times, as you know. The last one that was approved was in 18. Does that mean it's running out this year, James? I think that's the thing. We did refuse it last time it was before us because they wanted a basement, and now it's up for approval. At least there isn't the basement. So, I mean, I think members would like to know what the. I mean, we can all see what the differences are. I don't really need everybody to explain it again, but I just thought that was helpful. So, who's going to take me away? Carol, Councillor Melvin. Oh, beg your pardon. Shouldn't have called you Carol. Councillor Melvin.
That's all right. I don't mind. No, I was just looking. I've been looking through this, and I can't see a problem with this. They've taken the basement away, which I'm very pleased about, because in that particular area there is liabilities of flooding. So I'm just very happy to go with the officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you very much. James, would you like to come back in?
Thank you, Chairman. As set out on page 97 of the report, the 2018 consent we've referred to was granted in May 2018, so it does have a little longer to run.
Okay, thank you very much. Who's going to second me on this one? Councillor Kaufman. You have to turn your microphone off.
Always helps.
Got it. I'm happy to second that, Chairman.
Thank you very, very, very much. Okay, I'll go to the vote with obviously the changes that are in the addendum. We are now going to vote on this.
Chairman, sorry. Oh, Councillor Oswald had raised his hand, but I think he
sorry,
just unraised it. Apologies.
Yeah, sorry, Chairman. I've taken it down. It's okay. It's already been said. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman.
Okay. Yes, with the addendum, changes in the addendum to the report, I will go to the vote. Councillor Dott.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hagger.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Kaufman seconded. Councillor Melvin proposed. Councillor Morgan.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Oswald.
Yeah, for, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Yarrow.
For, Chairman.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous. All agreed on officer report. Is that correct, Liz?
That's correct, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to say goodbye to the viewers, and we are, if our councillors can all stay here while Liz kindly cuts off the stream. Thank you, and good night.
You could all just remain on mute for a moment. I'll let you know when we're no longer live.